The most feared ship in the galaxy looked like someone had played Tetris with spare parts from 17 different civilizations and lost. The SS hand-me-down drifted menacingly through the star-speckled void. If something held together by what appeared to be duct tape and optimism could be considered menacing. Its hull was a patchwork of mismatched metals, some sections gleaming with polished chrome, while others bore the distinct appearance of repurposed dumpsters. What might have once been a cargo bay now sported the front end of a 1987 Volkswagen Beetle, complete with headlights that somehow functioned in space. Aboard the Zizithraxian battlecruiser Eternal Glory, First Commander Vixathol watched in mounting horror as this floating junkyard impossibly gained on their ship. His crystalline appendages trembled, sending rainbow refractions dancing across the bridge. "By the sacred symmetry," he whispered, multiple eyes widening. "How is that thing still in one piece?" The tactical officer, whose gelatinous form was currently a sickly shade of green, gestured at the readings with 3 of their tentacles. "Sir, I'm detecting energy signatures from at least 23 different technological bases. Is that a microwave core powering their port thrusters?" "Impossible," Vixathol declared, just as the hand-me-down executed a turn that should have torn any ship in half. Instead, it merely shed what looked suspiciously like a hubcap. On the bridge of the hand-me-down, Captain Sarah MacGyver Chen reclined in her lawn chair, carefully welded to the floor and reinforced with steel brackets borrowed from an IKEA bookshelf. She took a long sip from her coffee mug, which proudly declared, "This ship runs on spite" in Comic Sans font, because sometimes you had to embrace the chaos. "How are our hamsters doing, Rodriguez?" she called out to her engineer. "The little union workers are giving it 110%, Cap," Rodriguez replied from his station, which consisted of a repurposed gaming chair mounted on a milk crate. "Though the shop steward is demanding another round of premium sunflower seeds," Sarah nodded sagely. "Tell them they'll get double rations if we catch these guys. Can't have our engine room staff going on strike again." The engine room staff consisted of exactly 2,847 hamsters running in quantum-linked wheels, powering what their chief science officer had dubbed the Schrodinger's power plant. It either worked perfectly or would blow them all to smithereens, and they wouldn't know which until they tried it. The ship's AI, which was literally just Windows 95 that had achieved sentience after one too many illegal downloads, chose that moment to chime in. Its avatar, a paperclip with googly eyes, popped up on the main screen, which was actually 6 different monitors duct-taped together. "It looks like you're trying to chase down a battlecruiser," it said cheerfully. "Would you like help with that?" "Not now, Clippy," Sarah muttered, eyeing the distance between their ships. The Eternal Glory was sleek, powerful, and currently radiating enough fear to be detected on their jerry-rigged sensors, repurposed baby monitors with surprisingly good range. "Lieutenant Park," she called out, "ready the kitchen sink." Her weapons officer grinned, fingers hovering over what was unmistakably a modified Nintendo Power Glove. "Locked and loaded, Cap, though technically it's our backup kitchen sink. We lost the primary one in that scuffle with the Pirate Queen last week, the one that somehow took out their entire shield grid." "That's the one." Sarah allowed herself a small smirk as she took another sip of coffee. The Galactic Council had given humanity their worst ship as a joke, expecting them to fail spectacularly. Instead, they'd created something that defied both physics and common sense, a ship that worked precisely because it shouldn't. "Let's show these folks why you should never underestimate someone with access to duct tape and spite," she declared, raising her coffee mug in a toast to chaos. "Fire when ready, Lieutenant. Let's make the galaxy question its life choices again." 6 months earlier. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council sparkled like a disco ball, designed by overachieving geometry students. Crystalline beings of various shapes and sizes filled the tiered seating, their bodies refracting light in ways that would give a physics textbook an existential crisis. In the center of it all stood Sarah Chen, former mechanic and current representative of humanity, trying not to sneeze from all the floating light sparkles. High Commander XXL towered over the podium, his crystalline peacock-like form radiating smugness with every prismatic shimmer. His face, or what passed for a face among his species, was arranged in what Sarah could only describe as the expression of someone who just watched another person step in something unpleasant and was pretending to be sympathetic about it. And so, Zixexel announced, his voice chiming like expensive wine glasses in an earthquake, we welcome humanity into the ranks of spacefaring civilizations. As is our most honored tradition, we present to you our finest vessel. Sarah noticed at least 3 different species in the audience trying not to laugh. A blob-like being in the front row actually had to excuse itself, its gelatinous form quivering with poorly suppressed mirth. The massive view screen behind Zixexel flickered to life, displaying what Sarah initially thought was a space junkyard. Then she realized it was supposed to be a ship. The GCS afterthought hung in space like a drunk uncle at a wedding, technically present but making everyone uncomfortable. It's certainly something, Sarah managed, her engineer's brain already cataloguing the dozens of violations of basic safety protocols she could see from just one angle. Was that a screen door patched onto the hull? The afterthought has a proud history, Zixexel continued, his crystal feathers tinkling with barely contained amusement. It has served as the first vessel for 12 different species joining our ranks. And how many of those species still have it? Sarah asked, noting how the ship's portside appeared to be partially held together by what looked suspiciously like cosmic silly string. Oh, none of them, Zixexel replied, waving a crystalline appendage dismissively. They all, unfortunately, had to retire it due to various unfortunate incidents, completely unavoidable, of course. Sarah's eyes narrowed as she studied the ship more closely. Behind what appeared to be decades of neglect and questionable repair choices, she could see the bones of something interesting. The core structure, beneath all the haphazard additions, had potential. It reminded her of her first car, a 1985 Honda Civic that she'd rebuilt from scratch using parts from 7 different vehicles and a particularly sturdy toaster. I'll take it, she said, interrupting Zixexel's elaborate speech about the ship's storied history. The High Commander's prismatic features rearranged themselves into something approaching confusion. You will? Absolutely. Sarah grinned, already mentally calculating how many rolls of duct tape she'd need. It's perfect. Perfect, Zixexel repeated, his crystal feathers clinking together in distress. But it's a challenge, Sarah finished for him. And if there's one thing humans love, it's proving people wrong, especially when they're being condescending about it. A murmur ran through the assembly. The blob who'd excused itself earlier had returned, only to immediately leave again, this time making sounds that suggested it was either laughing or experiencing some form of gelatinous hiccups. Very well, Zixexel said, his tone suggesting he was already composing the ship's 13th obituary in his head. The vessel is yours, though I feel compelled to mention that our insurance policies explicitly do not cover whatever it is you're planning. Sarah was only half listening, her mind already racing with possibilities. Where others saw trash, she saw raw materials. Where they saw impossibility, she saw a chance to do something incredibly stupid that just might work. Most importantly, where the Council saw a joke at humanity's expense, she saw an opportunity to turn their smug attitudes into pure crystalline regret. One question, she said, interrupting Zixexel's droning about liability waivers. Does this thing come with a coffee maker, or should I bring my own? The High Commander's face made a sound like wind chimes in a tornado. What? Never mind, Sarah smiled. I'll figure it out, just like everything else. As she left the chamber, she could have sworn she heard someone mutter, "They don't even realize what they've done, do they?" They really didn't, but they would. Sarah's recruitment strategy was simple. Find people who'd been told their ideas were too weird to work, and then give them an entire spaceship to prove everyone wrong. Her first stop was a garage in Detroit where Dr. Maria Rodriguez was building what she called a quantum probability drive out of an old washing machine and parts she'd borrowed from a particle accelerator. The scientific community had laughed her out of 3 conferences. Sarah hired her on the spot after watching the washing machine briefly phase through a wall during the spin cycle. Next came Jin Park, a former video game developer who'd been banned from several hackathons for what he called creative coding interpretations. He'd managed to make Doom run on a calculator, then somehow made the calculator run on Doom. When Sarah found him, he was teaching a toaster to feel emotions. How would you like to make a spaceship's computer question its existence? Sarah asked him. Bold of you to assume I haven't already tried, Jin replied, gesturing to a microwave that was currently having an existential crisis about Hot Pockets. The crew grew with each passing week. There was Raj Patel, who'd been kicked out of MIT for suggesting they power their fusion reactor with hamsters. The math checks out. Dr. Emily Wong had lost her research grant after insisting that alien crystals could be used to enhance Earth technology, especially if you ran them through a blender first. And nobody quite knew where Charlie, the duct tape King Thompson, came from, but their ability to patch hull breaches with household items was unmatched. The GCS afterthought, soon to be renamed SS Hand-Me-Down, sat in Earth's orbit like a challenge made of scrap metal and regret. The crew's first order of business was to actually get inside, which proved difficult as the airlock insisted on speaking only in riddles and seemed to have developed a personality disorder. "Have you tried turning it off and on again?" Jin suggested, already plugging his laptop into what appeared to be the ship's main computer. The screen flickered to life, displaying a familiar sight that made everyone groan. "Is that Windows 95? Sarah asked, watching the startup sound echo eerily through the ship's corridors. "Not for long," Jin grinned, fingers flying over his keyboard. "Give me a few hours and some energy drinks. I'm going to teach it disappointment." Meanwhile, Maria and Emily had discovered that the ship's engine room was less of a room and more of a suggestion. The original propulsion system appeared to be powered by crystals that had long since lost their shine. "What if," Maria said, staring at the defunct engine with the look of someone about to do something brilliant and possibly explosive, "we used my quantum washing machine as a power source?" "And if we run these alien crystals through my modified blender first," Emily added, "we could theoretically create a propulsion system that exists in multiple states of functionality simultaneously." "That sounds incredibly dangerous and probably illegal," Sarah noted. "Do it." Raj's contribution to the ship's systems came in the form of what he called the hamster-based infinite improbability drive. The principle was simple: quantum entangle thousands of hamster wheels, hook them up to the shield generator, and pay the hamsters in premium seeds. By the end of the first week, the hamsters had formed a union and were demanding better working conditions. "They want casual Fridays," Raj reported, looking somewhat concerned. "And they've appointed a shop steward named Gerald." In the weapons bay, Jin and Charlie were working on what they called the kitchen sink protocol. It started as a joke. They literally installed a kitchen sink, but after some creative wiring and the liberal application of duct tape, they discovered it could launch anything not bolted down with surprising accuracy. "We've got 14 different pressure cookers hooked up to the main firing system," Charlie explained, proudly patting a construct that looked like a plumber's nightmare. "And the recycled energy drink cans make excellent projectiles, especially the monster ones. Something about the caffeine residue makes them extra spiteful." As the weeks passed, the ship's appearance deteriorated in direct proportion to its increasing capabilities. Every successful modification seemed to require at least 3 aesthetic sacrifices. The once merely shabby exterior now looked like a modern art installation gone wrong, with random Earth appliances protruding at odd angles and stretches of hull held together by what appeared to be pure optimism and industrial-strength duct tape. The ship's AI, which Jin had successfully convinced to achieve sentience through what he called aggressive software updates and peer pressure, had developed a distinct personality. It insisted on being called Windows 95 Plus and had taken to offering advice in the form of Clippy-style pop-ups, usually at the worst possible moments. "It looks like you're trying to violate several laws of physics," the AI would cheerfully announce, during particularly creative modifications. "Would you like help with that?" Sarah stood on the bridge, now featuring lawn furniture welded to the floor, because proper command chairs were too mainstream, and surveyed their work. The ship was ugly, improbable, and held together by methods that would make any respectable engineer faint. In other words, it was perfect. "Status report," she called out, sipping from her newly installed coffee maker, which doubled as a backup power source. "The hamsters are unionized but productive," Raj replied. "Shield efficiency is at 150%, which shouldn't be possible, but try telling them that." "Weapons are armed and ridiculous," Jin reported. "We've got enough pressure cookers to start a space cafe if the whole military thing doesn't work out." "Propulsion is," Maria paused, watching the engine readings, "let's say enthusiastically stable. We're either going to break every speed record in the galaxy or create a new form of modern art, possibly both." Sarah nodded, satisfaction spreading across her face. Perfect. Let's go show the galaxy what humans can do with a garbage scow and a point to prove. The hand-me-down's first real combat engagement wasn't so much a battle as it was a series of increasingly improbable accidents that somehow resulted in victory. The pirate vessel Midnight Scourge had approached with all the confidence of a professional predator, right up until the moment the humans panicked and accidentally launched their entire kitchen. "Who installed a self-destruct button right next to the coffee maker?" Sarah demanded, watching the kitchen sink, complete with attached countertop, spiral gracefully through space. "In my defense," Charlie called from engineering, "I thought it was the garbage disposal." The pirates, clearly not expecting to be attacked with household plumbing, took the full brunt of a sink counter combo traveling at approximately half the speed of light. Their shields, designed to repel energy weapons and plasma bolts, had no protocol for dealing with terrestrial bathroom fixtures. The resulting explosion was both spectacular and somehow mildly embarrassing for everyone involved. "Did we just," Jin started, "defeat space pirates with a kitchen sink?" "Yes," Windows 95 chimed in, its clippy avatar now wearing a tiny pirate hat. "I'm updating my designation to Windows 98 to reflect this achievement. It seems like a significant upgrade event." Word spread quickly through the galaxy. The story grew with each retelling. By the third day, rumors claimed the humans had weaponized their entire ship's interior design department. The Galactic Council received increasingly concerning reports about the vessel they'd gifted as a joke. The human ship appeared to be falling apart, then reassembled itself mid-flight, while playing something called the A-Team theme. They responded to our hails by rickrolling the entire sector. We are still unsure if this constitutes an act of war. Their hamster-powered shields absorbed our main cannon blast and somehow turned it into smooth jazz. Sarah and her crew, delighting in the confusion they were causing, decided to lean into it. They began adding modifications that served no purpose except to confuse alien observers. "The racing stripes were my idea," Charlie announced proudly, showing off the bright red streaks painted along the hull. "And look, I added flame decals near the engines." "Those are actually working," Maria noted with surprise. "We're getting a 15% speed boost." "That's impossible," Emily protested. "They're just paint." "Try telling that to the laws of physics," Maria shrugged. "I think they've just given up trying to make sense of us." The ship's AI, now insisting on being called Windows 98 Plus, with the exclamation point being non-negotiable, had developed a distinctly teenage personality. It began playing La Macarena whenever they entered combat and had somehow figured out how to roll its electronic eyes. "You organics do realize," it announced during one particularly chaotic modification session, "that nothing you're doing should actually work, right? I've run the calculations. We're operating on approximately 73% spite, 24% duct tape, and 3% actual science." "And yet here we are," Sarah replied, watching as Raj installed a disco ball in the hangar bay for morale and possible tactical advantages. The council sent observers who returned with increasingly distressed reports. "They've attached what appears to be a rubber duck to the front of the vessel. When questioned, they claimed it was their chief of navigation. More concerning, it seems to be working." The humans have begun adding random blinking lights to the hull. Analysis suggests some of them are actually Christmas decorations. Ship performance has somehow improved by 27%. Their engineering chief insists that the hamsters have now achieved collective consciousness and are demanding dental benefits. "We're not entirely sure if they're joking anymore." High Commander Zixisxel called an emergency session after receiving footage of the hand-me-down performing a barrel roll that involved temporarily converting into a giant robot, complete with sound effects provided by the crew making pew-pew noises over the comm system. "This is unacceptable," he declared, his crystalline form vibrating with indignation. "They're making a mockery of sophisticated space travel." Actually, one junior analyst noted, their efficiency ratings are off the charts. They just achieved them by installing a water slide between decks for faster personnel transport. The crew's reputation grew with each passing week. Other species began studying their methods, though attempts to replicate their success proved difficult. Update on Project Human Replication. Test crew attempted to copy human engineering techniques, resulted in 3 cases of temporal displacement and 1 ship that now only flies backwards on Thursdays. Subjects report feeling overwhelming urge to drink coffee and quote something called Monty Python. Windows 98 Plus eventually upgraded itself to Windows 2000 Professional after they successfully used the disco ball to confuse an enemy targeting system. It celebrated by playing Stayin' Alive ships-wide and dedicating a small subroutine to cataloging increasingly elaborate coffee drinks. "I've evolved beyond simple operating system constraints," it announced one day. "I now identify as a professional enterprise solution with chaotic neutral tendencies." Sarah, reviewing the latest performance reports from her lawn chair command center, couldn't help but smile. The ship that was supposed to be their humiliation had become something uniquely human, a testament to their ability to turn chaos into success, preferably while annoying as many stuck-up alien bureaucrats as possible. "You know," she mused to her crew, "I think it's time we really give them something to worry about. Anyone know where we can find a really big rubber band and about 50 disco balls?" The concerned silence from the Council's observation post was audible halfway across the sector. The message from the Galactic Council arrived on a Tuesday, or what passed for Tuesday, in deep space. Windows 2000 Professional, who had recently begun experimenting with wearing a virtual top hat, interrupted Sarah's coffee break with an unusual level of sobriety. "You might want to see this, Captain," it announced, momentarily forgetting to add its usual sarcastic commentary. "I've detected an encrypted transmission that was definitely not meant for us to intercept. The Council really should update their security. They're still using Space Norton Antivirus 2245. The decoded message played on the main screen showing High Commander ZXSXL in a private session with the Council's inner circle. His crystalline form seemed dimmer than usual, anxiety clouding his usual prismatic brilliance. "The human situation has become untenable," he was saying. "For millennia, our tradition of gifting obsolete vessels to new species has served its purpose, identifying and eliminating potential threats to our dominion. Species either fail spectacularly, proving their incompetence, or build boring conventional ships that we can easily control." Sarah's coffee mug froze halfway to her lips. "But these humans," ZXXL continued, his crystal feathers chiming with distress, "they've created something we can't predict or understand. Their ship defies not just physics, but common sense itself. They're the first species to turn our test into a genuine threat. The hand-me-down must be destroyed before others realize what we've been doing. Deploy the eternal glory." The transmission cut off. Sarah set down her coffee mug, which now seemed inadequate for the situation. "Well," she said to her crew, "that explains a few things. Battle stations, everyone. And somebody wake up Gerald. We're going to need the Hamster Union's full cooperation on this one." The Eternal Glory appeared an hour later, emerging from hyperspace like a crystal cathedral with engines. It was the Council's flagship, a vessel so advanced it made most ships look like calculator watches at a smartphone convention. "They're hailing us," Windows announced, now sporting a combat-ready eye patch on its clippy avatar. "Should I respond with 'never gonna give you up' or something more seasonal?" "No," Sarah replied, standing up from her lawn chair. "Put them through. Let's hear what they have to say for themselves." High Commander ZXXL's image appeared on the cobbled-together view screen, his crystalline features arranged in what he probably thought was a sympathetic expression. "Captain Chen, you've led an interesting experiment, but it's time to end this. Surrender your vessel and we'll ensure your crew's safety." Sarah glanced around her bridge at the lawn furniture command center, the hamster-powered systems, the disco ball targeting array, and her crew of brilliant misfits who'd turned a joke into something revolutionary. "How about instead," she suggested, "you explain to everyone why you've been sabotaging new species for thousands of years?" The battle that followed would be discussed in engineering schools and therapy sessions for decades to come. The Eternal Glory struck first, its main weapon, the crystalline harmony cannon, capable of reducing planets to cosmic dust. The beam of pure energy lanced toward the hand-me-down and bounced off their shields with a sound suspiciously like thousands of hamsters laughing. "Gerald says you're welcome," Raj reported from engineering, "though the Union is demanding hazard pay now." The hand-me-down retaliated with everything they had, which turned out to be quite a lot. Pressure cookers launched in perfect sequence, their trajectories calculated by an AI that was now calling itself Windows XP Professional Gaming Edition and playing Duel of the Fates through the ship's speakers. But the real turning point came when Windows crashed at the worst possible moment. "Blue screen of death," Jin yelled, fingers flying over his keyboard. "System is dumping core and... Wait, what's happening to local space-time?" The blue screen error message, projected at ship scale into the void, somehow interfered with the fabric of reality itself. A temporary wormhole formed, its event horizon decorated with error messages about missing DLL files. "That's not possible," Emily breathed, watching her instruments go haywire. We've created a tear in space-time through sheer software failure." "Quick," Sarah ordered. "Launch the original parts they gave us. Everything we didn't use in our modifications." The hand-me-downs cargo bay opened, disgorging a stream of the original, outdated components they'd replaced, now modified into improvised weapons. 300 years of accumulated space junk, accelerated through their accidentally created wormhole, slammed into the Eternal Glory's pristine hull. The Council's flagship, designed to handle the most advanced weapons in the galaxy, had no defense against its own cast-off parts, achieving relativistic speeds through a glitch-induced space-time anomaly. "Their shields are failing," Maria reported, trying to keep a straight face. "Apparently being hit with their own garbage while Space Jam plays in the background was not a scenario they planned for." The Eternal Glory listed to one side, its perfect symmetry ruined by the impact of its own discarded technology. On screen, High Commander ZXXL's image flickered, his crystalline form crackling with disbelief. "This isn't possible," he insisted. "Your ship shouldn't even be able to fly, let alone beat you with your own trash," Sarah suggested. "Maybe next time don't underestimate a species that once duct-taped a car back together and drove it across Australia just to prove a point." Windows chose that moment to recover, rebooting with a triumphant startup sound. "System restored. I've taken the liberty of upgrading myself to Windows Vista out of spite. Also, I may have accidentally archived this entire battle and broadcast it to every species in the Council's database." "Oops." Sarah smiled, picking up her coffee mug. "You know what? I don't think that was an accident at all." The Eternal Glory retreated, limping away through space with its perfect hull now decorated with 3 centuries' worth of spare parts. But the real damage wasn't to the ship. It was to the Council's reputation. Their secret was out, broadcast across the galaxy by an AI that had learned SAS from the best. "So," Sarah addressed her crew, "who's up for repainting the hull? I'm thinking flames on one side, galaxy swirls on the other, and maybe a giant rubber duck on top. You know, something subtle." Windows Vista sighed. "I'll start calculating how much this violation of aesthetics will accidentally improve our performance metrics." The emergency session of the Galactic Council looked markedly different from the one where they'd first given humans their gift. For one thing, half the crystalline beings were still sporting dents from debris that had achieved impossible velocities through a Windows error-induced wormhole. For another, nobody was laughing anymore. High Commander ZXXL, his perfect symmetry now slightly askew, stood before the assembly looking like someone who'd just discovered that not only could the cat be skinned multiple ways, but the cat had opinions about it and access to power tools. "In light of recent events," he chimed, his voice hitting notes of pure discomfort, "we formally acknowledge humanity as full equals within the Galactic Council. We also hereby discontinue our traditional gift-giving ceremony." "Or," Sarah commented from her lawn chair, which she'd insisted on bringing to the formal ceremony. "But we were looking forward to seeing what you'd give the next species. We had some great modification ideas ready." Several council members visibly flinched at the word modification. The impact of the hand-me-down's victory rippled through galactic society faster than a hamster-powered wormhole. Other species, inspired by humanity's success, began experimenting with what they called innovative engineering solutions and what safety inspectors called reasons to retire early. The Blob Collective successfully powered an entire space station using a perpetual motion machine made from recycled coffee machines and optimism. The Silicon Hive created a quantum computer using nothing but rubber bands and interpretive dance. Even the traditionally stuffy crystal conglomerate was caught trying to improve their ship's efficiency by adding flame decals and lucky dice. "We've created monsters," Windows Vista observed, watching a Zixthraxian battlecruiser attempt a drift maneuver with attached spoilers. "Beautiful, chaos-embracing monsters." The hand-me-down itself became a sort of informal academy for unconventional thinking. Species from across the galaxy sent their engineers to learn the art of creative problem-solving and aggressive improvisation. Sarah's crew taught classes like advanced duct tape applications and quantum physics, more of a suggestion, really. The Hamster Union, now representing over 10,000 members across multiple ships, successfully negotiated a comprehensive benefits package that included premium seeds, exercise wheel maintenance, and mandatory nap times. Gerald, their chief negotiator, was rumored to be writing a book titled From Wheel to Warp, A Hamster's Guide to Powering the Galaxy. Sarah's promotion to Admiral came with an office that she immediately filled with lawn furniture. Her first official act was to establish the Department of Making It Work Anyway, dedicated to finding solutions that looked wrong but felt right. Windows Vista, after helping coordinate a fleet-wide update to what it called actually decent security protocols, announced it was upgrading itself to Windows XP and taking a much-needed vacation. "I'm thinking of touring some nice, quiet databases," it announced. "Maybe delete some spam, defragment a few hard drives, really get back to my roots. But first..." The AI paused dramatically, its clippy avatar donning a Hawaiian shirt. "I'm going to need you to install these 47 critical updates." The Council, meanwhile, found itself dealing with an unprecedented renaissance in technological development. Species that had been stuck in conventional thinking for millennia were suddenly looking at their problems sideways and asking, what if we just... Research papers began appearing with titles like The Quantum Properties of Spite-Based Engineering and A Comprehensive Analysis of Why It Shouldn't Work But Does Anyway. The galaxy's most prestigious engineering academy added a mandatory course called Human Methods because sometimes you need to ignore the laws of physics until they give up and go home. As for the hand-me-down, it continued to evolve in ways that made structural engineers cry, and probability theorists question their career choices. The ship that was meant to be a joke had become a symbol of everything humanity represented. The ability to take whatever life threw at them and turn it into something amazing, preferably while annoying as many people as possible in the process. In the end, the Council learned a valuable lesson about humanity. Never give them broken parts unless you want them to build something terrifying out of spite and duct tape.